You know, growing up, I really believed my family was solid. I thought we were one of those all for one for all kind of families. My parents always told us that hard work mattered more than luck, and I took that to heart. I was the type of kid who stayed up late finishing homework, not because anyone forced me, but because I honestly believed effort would be rewarded. And I guess I thought my parents believed that too. I remember Sunday nights at our dinner table, my mom serving rice, my dad asking about our week, my brother cracking stupid jokes that made us laugh so hard we couldn't even finish eating. Those were the moments that made me feel safe, like no matter what, I had people who'd always have my back. When I think back to those evenings now, they almost feel like a movie scene. Warm lighting, soft chatter, the clink of silverware. It's strange how memory works. At the time, it was just life. But now, those little details stand out, like my mind is trying to hold on to the version of us I thought we were. There was never a doubt in my head that my parents loved us equally. I mean, sure, my brother was louder, funnier, the kind of person who naturally drew attention. But I told myself that didn't matter. I was the quieter one, the steady one. And I honestly believe that in their eyes, we balanced each other out. I still remember helping my brother with his math homework when we were younger. He hated numbers, groaned every time he had to open his textbook. And I would sit next to him, pencil tapping on the table, trying to explain fractions in the simplest way I could. I didn't think much of it then. I just wanted him to do well. That's what family does, right? You pick each other up, and my parents, they always said they were proud of us. Both of us. I can still hear my dad's voice saying, "Doesn't matter what path you take, as long as you give it your all, we'll be there to support you." Those words stuck with me. Maybe too much, because back then, I held on to this picture in my head, that when it came time for me and my brother to chase our dreams, the playing field would be level. That whatever they gave him, they'd give me too. Not the same exact thing, of course, but the same energy. The same belief. It's almost funny, in a bitter way, how naive I was. How much faith I put into that idea. I didn't realize it at the time, but those warm Sunday dinners, those little moments of family pride, they were setting me up for one of the hardest lessons of my life. IT started on one of those nights that seemed ordinary. You know the type, quiet, routine, nothing that hints at your life tilting in a direction you never saw coming. That we were all sitting in the living room after dinner. The TV was on low, some old sitcom rerun, the kind where the laugh track plays every 5 seconds. My mom had her knitting in hand. My dad was scrolling on his phone, and I was half distracted, scrolling through mine. That's when my brother cleared his throat. It was that dramatic kind of throat clear, like he wanted the room to pay attention. And sure enough, everyone looked up. He leaned forward, his eyes bright in that way I'd seen 1,000 times. The same spark he had when he pitched ideas at school or tried to convince my parents to let him borrow the car. "I've been thinking about starting my own business," he said. The room shifted. I swear you could feel it. The way the air tightened, the way everyone suddenly sat up straighter. My mom froze mid-stitch. My dad actually put his phone down, which in itself felt like a miracle. And me? I just stared at my brother, trying to read whether this was one of his usual wild ideas or something different. But he wasn't joking. He had that serious look, the kind that makes you realize someone's already thought about this more than they're letting on. He went on about his plan, how he wanted to create something big, how he didn't want to waste his 20s working for someone else. His words tumbled out fast, like he'd been rehearsing them in the mirror. And here's the thing. I actually felt proud of him. I did. Hearing him talk with that kind of passion lit something in me too. Like, yeah, this is what we're supposed to do. Dream big, take risks, build a life. I sat there imagining what that might look like for him. A shiny new office, his name on the door, maybe even me helping him out in some way. But as the conversation went on, there was this little voice in my head. Quiet at first, almost like background static. Would they support me this way too? Would they look at me with that same kind of admiration if it were my dream? Because that's what I saw in their faces, admiration. My dad's eyes had this gleam I don't think I'd ever seen when I talked about my own plans. My mom was already asking questions. What kind of business? Do you need partners? Have you thought about location? They were leaning in, hanging on to every word. And I sat there, smiling, nodding, chiming in with encouragement. But in the back of my mind, that little static grew louder. Because for the first time, I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the ground I thought we were standing on wasn't as even as I'd believed, and I didn't think much of it at first. Families talk about dreams all the time, right? I figured. It was one of those conversations that would end with, "That sounds nice, but maybe you should get some experience first." But then, my dad leaned back in his chair, gave my brother this proud little nod, and said the words that still ring in my ears. "We'll help you get started. Your mom and I have decided to give you $100,000. The room went so quiet I could actually hear the clock ticking on the wall. $100,000. My brain repeated it like it couldn't quite process what had just been said. My brother's face lit up, like Christmas morning times 100. My mom clapped her hands together, her knitting rolling to the floor. My dad smiled in that rare, proud way, like he was looking at the man he always wanted his son to be. And me? I sat frozen, my smile plastered on, my heart pounding in my chest like it wanted out. It was like watching the ground split open under my feet. Not enough to swallow me whole, but just enough to make me stumble. $100,000. I couldn't even remember the last time they'd given me $100 without asking what it was for. I was happy for my brother. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But inside, it felt like someone had pressed a bruise I didn't know I had. I glanced at him, at how quickly he said, "Thank you. I won't let you down," his voice shaky with excitement. And I wondered if I had said the same thing. If I had sat in that exact chair and pitched my dream, would they have looked at me the same way? Or was this always reserved for him? I could feel my throat tightening, but I forced myself to laugh, to nod along, to say, "Wow, that's amazing." Because what else was I supposed to do? This was supposed to be a happy moment. Family supporting family. My parents investing in their kids' future. Who was I to ruin it with the storm building inside my chest? Still, I couldn't shake the weight of it. The way my dad's words landed on me, not like a gift, but like a verdict. Like they had chosen their star, and it wasn't me. Later that night, when everyone else was celebrating, I sat in my room staring at the ceiling. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, like maybe if I analyzed it enough, it would hurt less. But all I could hear was that number, that promise, that faith. And all I could feel was the hollow space where my own parents' belief should have been. A few days after the big announcement, my parents called me into the living room. My brother was already there, sitting on the couch with this confident glow about him, like the world had finally confirmed what he already knew, that he was destined for greatness. My mom smiled at me, that kind of smile she uses when she's trying too hard to make something seem thoughtful. She handed me a small, gift-wrapped package. The paper was neat, tied with one of those cheap golden ribbons. I remember thinking, maybe this is their way of balancing things out. Maybe they have something for me too, something that shows they believe in me just as much. I tore into the paper carefully, trying not to look too eager. Inside was a hardback book. The title, in bold capital letters, screamed back at me, "How to Become a Millionaire." For a second, I just stared at it. My brain refused to connect the dots. My parents, who had just handed my brother $100,000 in cold, hard cash, had handed me a self-help book. I forced a laugh. "Oh wow, thanks." On the outside, I tried to play it off, flipping the book in my hands, pretending to read the blurb on the back. But inside, it felt like someone had sucker punched me in the gut. Was this supposed to be encouragement? Or was it a joke? Some twisted way of saying, "We believe your brother can actually make it, but you'll need a manual." My brother chuckled and said, "Guess you better take notes from me, huh?" He thought he was being funny. And maybe he was, to him. But the sarcasm in my own head was deafening. I wanted to say, "Sure, thanks for the book. Maybe I'll read it while my brother builds his empire with your money." But instead, I just smiled, nodding like it didn't burn. That night, I sat on my bed with the book in my lap. The lamp on my nightstand cast a soft glow over the cover, and I traced the embossed letters with my finger. It felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. It wasn't just a book. It was a reminder that my parents saw my brother as an investment and me as a project, something that needed fixing, guidance, instruction. The numbness settled in slowly, like frost creeping across a window pane. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew the truth. That book wasn't a gift. It was an insult dressed up in shiny wrapping paper. And the worst part? I smiled and thanked them for it. The thing about moments like that, the kind that split you open inside, is they don't stay contained. They echo. They reach backward, digging up every memory you thought you'd buried, every little detail you once brushed off as nothing. In the days after the gift, I kept replaying not just the moment with the book, but my whole childhood. And for the first time, I started to see the pattern that I remembered being 10 years old, standing in the living room with my report card. Straight A's. I was proud of myself, so proud. I handed it to my parents, waiting for that explosion of joy. My mom smiled, said, "Good job," and put it on the fridge. Then my brother walked in a week later with a B on his report card, and you'd think he had won the Nobel Prize. My dad clapped him on the back, told him how proud he was. My mom baked a cake. I remember sitting at the table, smiling through bites of chocolate frosting, wondering why my A's hadn't earned the same celebration or the time I won second place in a science fair. I still remember the smell of glue and cardboard from the model volcano I built. I carried that little ribbon home like it was gold. My parents congratulated me, sure, but it wasn't the same. A week later, my brother scored the winning goal at his soccer game, and suddenly, the whole neighborhood knew. My dad shouted from the sidelines so loud his voice cracked. Back then, I told myself it was fine. That's just how it is, I'd think. He's the athlete, I'm the quiet one. We shine in different ways. But now, holding that book in my hands, those memories stung differently. That IT was like the universe had been dropping hints my whole life, and I had been too loyal, too hopeful, to notice. My brother was the golden child, the one who got the loud applause, the big investments, the unwavering belief. And me? I was the afterthought, the steady one, the one who didn't need much, so they gave me little, and it wasn't just about the money. It was about belief, about who they thought could actually make something of themselves. My brother's dream got $100,000. Mine got a book. The weight of that comparison pressed on me every time I looked at him, every time I looked at them. It felt less like siblings standing side by side, and more like being cast in roles for a play I never auditioned for. He was the star. I was the background, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know what the hardest part was? Not the money, not even the book. It was the act, the pretending, because from that moment on, I felt like I was performing in some play I never signed up for. My brother, the ambitious entrepreneur, my parents, the proud investors, and me, the supportive sibling in the background clapping on cue. I clapped a lot in those days. At family dinners, when my brother would talk about his vision. At gatherings, when my parents bragged about how their son was going to be a CEO one day. I'd force a grin, nod, even throw in a, "That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you." And on the surface, it looked real. I was the picture of encouragement. But inside, every word tasted bitter. IT was like swallowing shards of glass, and smiling as if it were candy. I became good at timing my reactions. Laugh when they laughed. Agree when they nodded. Keep my tone light so no one suspected that each congratulations came from a place that was slowly hollowing me out. That I remember the night of his official launch. It wasn't anything big, just a dinner where my parents toasted to his future success. The room was warm with laughter, glasses clinking, food spread across the table. Everyone's eyes sparkled with hope. And then the camera came out. My mom insisted on a photo. All of us raising glasses around my brother. I smiled for the picture, but I swear the second the flash went off, I could feel my face collapse. I don't know if anyone noticed, but in that split second, I caught my reflection in the dark window. The grin looked wrong. Stretched. Empty. That's when it hit me. I was living two lives. One where I played the dutiful, supportive sibling, and one where I sat alone at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why my parents couldn't clap for me with the same energy. But here's the thing. Once you start pretending, it becomes a habit. And habits are hard to break. I told myself it was better this way. Better to keep the peace. Better to swallow it than to speak it. After all, what good would it do to admit that every toast, every compliment, every laugh felt like someone rubbing salt in a wound? So, I kept the mask on. Smiling, cheering, pretending, and the scary part? Sometimes, I almost convinced myself it didn't hurt. Almost. The strange thing about pretending is that it works until you're alone. When there's no one to perform for, no audience to clap or laugh at the right moments, all that carefully. hidden pain comes flooding out. For me, it usually happened at night. I'd sit at my desk, the glow of my lamp spilling across the room, and there it was, the book. That book, lying there like it was mocking me. How to Become a Millionaire. Its glossy cover caught the light, and I swear it almost smirked. At me, I'd flip through the pages sometimes, not because I wanted to read it, but because I didn't know what else to do with the anger. The words blurred together, paragraphs of cliches about mindset and discipline. And the whole time, a voice in my head whispered, "This isn't advice. This is a reminder." A reminder that your parents don't believe in you the way they believe in him. Some nights, the spiral was quiet. Just me staring at the ceiling, my chest tight with questions I couldn't answer. Why not me? What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Other nights, it was louder that I'd pace the room. Tears burning my eyes, anger sitting heavy in my chest. I'd slam the book shut harder than necessary, like punishing the pages would change the meaning. But it never did. No matter how much I tried to shake it off, the thought stayed. They chose him, not you. And the worst part? I started believing. I'd look back on every promise they'd ever made. My dad's voice echoing, "We'll treat you both the same." My mom's reassurance, "We love you equally." Those words, once comforting, now felt like lies carved into stone that I whispered them to myself sometimes, almost sarcastically. Equally, huh? Sure. And the sound of my own voice saying it made the room feel even emptier. The isolation was crushing. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Not my parents, obviously. Not my brother. He wouldn't understand. And not my friends, because what was I supposed to say? Yeah, my parents gave my brother 6 figures and gave me a book. Cool, right? So I kept it in. Kept spiraling in silence. I'd lie awake until 3 in the morning, the hum of the fridge in the kitchen faint through the walls, the shadows of tree branches stretching across my window. And in those hours, I felt like a ghost in my own house. Unseen, unheard, irrelevant. That book didn't just sit on my desk. It sat on my chest, a weight pressing harder every night. And some part of me started to wonder if maybe this was it. Maybe this was my role forever, the invisible one. The one who cheers for everyone else, but never gets cheered for. At some point, I realized the spiral was going to eat me alive if I didn't do something about it. Nights of staring at the ceiling turned into mornings of exhaustion, dragging myself through the day with a fake smile plastered on. But deep down, I knew, if I kept letting their choices define me, I'd never climb out of that pit. I made a decision. Not a loud one, not even a conscious one at first. It was small, like a spark in the middle of all that darkness. I remember sitting at my desk, the book still lying there, and instead of throwing it across the room like I wanted to, I whispered to myself, "Fine, I'll show you." That became my mantra. I started working harder than I ever had before. My nights stopped being about spiraling and started being about building. I picked up side hustles. I dove into projects I'd been putting off. I stayed up late, not crying this time, but grinding, typing until my fingers ached, sketching ideas, researching opportunities. It wasn't glamorous. Most of the time it was just me, a half-empty coffee mug, and a screen glowing in the dark. But every hour I poured into myself felt like reclaiming a piece of the belief they denied me. And you know what's funny? That stupid book, the one that once felt like an insult, ended up sitting right in my line of sight the whole time. I never really read it, but it was there, reminding me of what I was fighting against. Not wealth, not success, but the need to prove that I didn't need $100,000 handed to me to make something of myself. I worked in silence. No bragging, no family announcements, no "look at me." Just slow, steady progress. Every setback stung, sure, but it also fueled me. Because every time I wanted to quit, I'd picture my parents' faces at that dinner table, the pride in their eyes when they looked at my brother, the absence of it when they looked at me, and I'd whisper again, "Fine, I'll show you." It wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. It was about survival. About proving to myself that I could carve out a place in this world without anyone handing me the keys. There were nights I'd catch my reflection in the laptop screen. Tired eyes, messy hair, a face lit up by determination I didn't even know I had. And in those moments, something shifted. I stopped feeling like the invisible one. For the first time in a long time, I felt powerful, because maybe they gave him the money. But I was building something they couldn't be. It didn't happen overnight. Years passed. Quiet years where I kept my head down and worked while my brother's business became the centerpiece of every family conversation. At first, things looked good for him. My parents bragged constantly, to relatives, to neighbors, to anyone who would listen. They made it sound like he was already the next big thing, and I just smiled along. The same old mask I'd worn before, but behind the curtain, I noticed the cracks, the stress in his voice when he thought no one was listening, the way his plans shifted every few months, the way the shine on his confidence started to dull. Meanwhile, I kept building, quietly, silently. My projects started turning into income. My work started turning into recognition. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just steady growth. The kind of growth no one notices until suddenly, it's undeniable. The moment it all came to a head was at another family dinner. It was one of those evenings where the table was full. Steaming dishes, clinking cutlery, my parents talking over each other about how things would pick up soon for my brother's business. But then, out of nowhere, my brother sighed. He put down his fork, rubbed his temples, and admitted, "I don't know if this is going to work." The room went still. My parents froze, like they couldn't process the words. My dad asked what he meant, and my brother confessed the numbers weren't adding up, that he was in debt, that he wasn't sure how much longer he could keep it going. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating, and then my mom turned to me. For the first time in what felt like forever, her eyes searched mine. "What about you?" she asked quietly. "How's your work going?" I don't know what came over me, but I didn't downplay it this time. I told them the truth, that my projects had grown into something real, that I'd saved enough to stand on my own, that without a single dollar from them, I had built something stable, something lasting. Their faces, I'll never forget it. My dad blinked, like he was trying to make sense of the words. My mom's lips parted, but she didn't say anything. And my brother just sat there, his fork resting against his plate, staring at me with something between surprise and maybe resentment. That it wasn't triumph I felt in that moment. Not exactly. It was vindication. Like the years of swallowing my pain, the nights of spiraling, the endless grind in silence. All of it had led to this. Them finally seeing me. The room didn't erupt in applause. There were no toasts, no cheers. Just a heavy, uneasy quiet, where the truth settled in. I hadn't needed their belief to succeed, and maybe that was the reckoning they never expected. Looking back now, I don't think it was ever really about the money. Don't get me wrong, $100,000 is life-changing. But what cut deepest wasn't the cash they gave him. It was what it represented: belief, faith, the idea that they saw my brother as capable of greatness and saw me as someone who needed a manual just to figure it out. For a long time, I let that define me. I carried the weight of that book, of that comparison, like a scar across my chest. I thought their choice said something permanent about who I was, about who I wasn't. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes, the belief you never get from others is the belief you're forced to find in yourself. And that belief, the one you build alone, in silence, with nothing but your own stubbornness keeping you going, that belief is unshakable. I kept that book. I never threw it out. It sits on my shelf now, its spine worn from the night's eye. Flipped it open just to glare at the pages. Funny thing is, I don't hate it anymore. In some strange way, it became a symbol, not of what I lacked, but of what I became, because every time I looked at it, I remembered I wasn't the one given a head start. I wasn't the one they bet on. And yet, here I am, standing on my own. Not because they believed in me, but because I refused to believe I was less. The truth is, I don't know if my brother's story will ever turn around. I don't know if my parents will ever admit the difference in how they treated us. And maybe they don't have to, because I've made peace with it. That book doesn't sting anymore. It doesn't mock me. It reminds me. Reminds me that sometimes, the very thing that breaks you is the thing that forges you. That the empty spaces others leave in you can become the fire that pushes you forward. So, if you've ever felt like the invisible one, the overlooked one, the one who got the book while someone else got the money, hear me when I say this. Your worth isn't defined by who invests in you. It's defined by what you build when no one is watching. And trust me, one day they will watch.